You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, as always, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak and Mr. Bob Harris. Gentlemen, it is week 9. We are living in a COVID world. The election is craziness. We have this beyond the halfway part of the NFL season. Mr. Harris, what is good in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I don't know what's good. There's a lot going on, though. Some of it's actually good, but not a lot of the football portion of it is good. So, Kyle, welcome. How are we doing today?
It's difficult to, if I could take you behind the curtain, we both do this for some semblance of pay. Maybe one could call it a living. It becomes increasingly difficult when I have no clue what the hell is going to happen in the next, 10 hours.
So, that being the case, let's tell you we'll tell you what's not going to happen. Players that definitely won't be playing. The San Francisco 49ers are hosting the Green Bay Packers. In this game, the 49ers have had a minor outbreak of the COVID. That means it started with Kendrick Bourne, who will not play. He's on the reserve COVID list. But it turns out that Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk were close contacts with Bourne. That doesn't mean they have it, but that means they have to isolate for 5 days and pass a series of tests. They will not be able to do that in advance of Thursday night's game. Deebo Samuel already ruled out of the game because of the injury, also a close contact with Bourne on COVID-19 reserve. Not that it matters, already out. Dante Pettis was released by the team, subsequently joined the Giants. So we're heading into this game against the Green Bay Packers with Trent Taylor and Richie James, who is questionable with an ankle injury, and practice squatters Kevin White, River Craycraft, Chris Finke, I don't know. With a less than stellar receiving core that's already even less than stellar because George Kittle is out and will miss at least 8 weeks. We call that the rest of the season at my house. Jimmy Garoppolo as well, out at least 6 weeks. So there are some issues here on the offense. Tevin Coleman not playing in this game, along with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, who are on IR. Coleman's not, but he's not playing. JaMychal Hasty and Jerick McKinnon will be your top backs on that side of the ball. Jordan Reed could return and be the guy catching the footballs for Nick Mullins, the starting quarterback now, unless he gets pulled for CJ Beathard, because we've seen that before. So that's the San Francisco side of that coin. Let's flip it. For the Green Bay Packers, A.J. Dillon on the COVID-19 list, ruled out. Close contact Jamal Williams, also ruled out. Aaron Jones, who's missed the last 2 games with a calf injury, questionable to play because of that same calf injury. Previous reporting said it was pessimistic. We don't know. That leaves Dexter Williams and Tyler Ervin. I'm reaching for these names because they're not household. They've had a combined total of 15 carries in the NFL. So hopefully Aaron Jones plays. Beyond that, everything's looking pretty good for this game. You guys, just, quick sentence on this, Kyle. How is it a 10-foot pole on everybody here? Or, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers? Is that it?
Yeah, you can definitely play Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. Outside of that, yeah, I think that's it. JaMychal Hasty is interesting-ish, but as probably incredible underdogs. It is just so difficult to see this, this team that has been gutted really putting up much of a fight against one of the NFL's better teams. It does seem like he may get a hollow role in that he's a banger between the tackles who, when do they ever get the chance to play with a lead or even a modest deficit? So very speculative, but I understand that some people had Saquon and Austin Eckler and Nick Chubb and all these guys. So if you're in that position, right, sure, you're probably playing JaMychal Hasty. And I guess you could also say the same for Jerick McKinnon. But I'm mostly looking at the obvious Packers plays. I think Dexter Williams is probably, if we don't see Aaron Jones, which, it's the Thursday game, so you will be able to it's not like you're, having to make the decision about a Monday night game. We'll know at lock what is going to be happening. So if Dexter Williams is the starter, then you could probably play him. And outside of that, that's about it.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're listening to this podcast on Friday and the game was not played Thursday night and has been moved to Tuesday, we'll reset all this somewhere on the website in advance of the game. So look for that on the main page of footballdiehards.com. If you're not a subscriber there, go to footballdiehards.com/free trial. You get the rest of the season for $12. If you like what you see and you want to buy it and you think, wow, $12, well, we'll give you a 15% discount if you use the promo code DieHards. Other COVID-related news. Matt Stafford on the COVID-19 reserve list. Although he does not have a positive test, he has been in close contact. That means a 5-day hiatus from any contact with the rest of the team. This is, they're going to get him a private jet. They're going to fly him to the game. He will play without practice if he continues to test negative, as the expectation might be. And he would play with no practice, which I guess Matthew Stafford with no practice, probably better than Chase Daniels with practice. I don't know. Either way, they'll be without Kenny Golladay, who has a hip injury in this game. This is not a good situation for the Detroit Lions going up against the Minnesota Vikings and one Dalvin Cook. The good news, and there is some kids, come on, man. Gardner Minshew won't play. No, that's not the good news. I'm just kidding. But he won't play. Jake Luton will get to start. Minshew has thumb issues.
It's good for Jake. It's good for Jake and his fans.
Jake. Yeah, it's good for Jake Luton. And they say he likes to throw the deep ball. Christian McCaffrey's back, right? Practiced fully to open the week on Wednesday. Came off the IR last week. It was a short week, a Thursday night game, so they didn't force him into the fray. Let's assume he's in the fray this week, Justin Lonero. How eager are you to play him his first week back?
No, he's going to play. I mean, Matt Rule said he is going to be thrusted into that bell cow role. So this is why you took him one in every league in the country, in the world. And now you have him week 9 at Arrowhead Stadium with limited fans there. So, yeah, I'm going to take him at his word. We saw this with Dalvin Cook last week, right? He's on DraftKings. Nobody had him because I think everybody was concerned that the workload was going to be scaled back. It was not. Christian McCaffrey is in that realm, and he's had a lot of time off. So the hope is that he's better. So you're going to plug him in, and you're probably going to get 20, 25 touches and a ton of fantasy points to go with it. Matchup proof. If there is any back in the NFL, it's him.
Yeah, that's a fact. For the New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara did limited practice to open the week. Said he ran his toe into the bedpost or something. He intends to practice the rest of the week. Also limited Drew Brees with a right shoulder issue. That's an important shoulder for Drew Brees. It's the one he throws with. No one seems worried about that. More exciting, Emmanuel Sanders off the COVID reserve list, practicing, ready to return. More exciting than that, Michael Thomas working on a limited basis to open the week. Also Marquez Callaway. Seems like this could be the week we get Michael Thomas back. We'll find out as the week goes on. You should be checking the main page of the website for that. Kenyon Drake won't play this week. Chase Edmonds' time has begun. And Antonio Brown is here. Had his first practice with the Buccaneers. Seems like he'll have a bit of a role. Bruce Arians said he'll play anywhere from 10 to 35 snaps. Tom Brady, his hero, will probably force the ball his way. You guys, have you ever seen anything like this? I'll hit you both up and we'll get into DFS. Have you ever seen anything like this Tom Brady affinity for one Antonio Brown, Kyle? It's to the point where not only is he living at Brady's house, as he did in New England, but Brady hooked him up with Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker. What's up with this? Is this getting a little weird?
It's weird. I think the only thing that parallels it is every morning when I wake up and look at myself in the mirror and think, if only Zach Zenner were here. But in the NFL context, because out of Zach and I, only one of us is in the league. In the NFL context, no, I don't. Maybe there are references that predate my NFL fandom, but this is very, very strange situation. I kind of do get the feeling that we will see maybe a above expectation Antonio Brown right away. And we did see, I want to say he ran like 15 or 20 routes in his first game and only game with New England and was targeted 8 times. It shouldn't be surprising if something similar like that happens, where no, Brown doesn't step onto the field for every single play, and they deploy him exactly how they want to, where every time he's on the field, he is one of the first or maybe the second read on a given play. They don't have to, he doesn't have to be out there for running downs or whatever, or downs where he wouldn't be Scotty Miller can be the third read on plays where the number 3 receiver is the third read. So I think we see not, old Antonio Brown, but probably the Patriots Antonio Brown is probably a decent enough example. Maybe slightly less volume because they had lesser receivers, but probably more efficiency. This offense looks better than Tom Brady did with the Patriots.
Yeah, much like Justin's invested in me. And by that, I mean he likes photos of me. It's the bald thing. Him, me, Robbie Gould, whoever.
That's right. That's right.
Justin, so who pays the price here?
Well, it's a gamble to say the least. I mean, you have the best quarterback of all time goes to a young football team, and Mike Evans is still relatively young, right? I mean, he's a veteran, but you have the Godwins of the world, and I think the goal here is winning a Super Bowl. And I think somebody said to Tom, he's your responsibility. Like, if he's going to come here, he could shatter this operation real quick. He's carrying himself with some grace. You take that for what it's worth. AB is so far. But when you throw him into the fray, there are mouths to feed there. There's no question that he conditions himself well. And over the last 10 years, he's bar none the best wide receiver that the three of us have seen. I think we can be in agreement there. Sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes and how the targets are dispersed. Like you said, Bruce Arians said anywhere from 10 to 35 snaps. I think AB's the type of guy can just kind of hop in. He did it here in New England. That game Kyle mentioned, it looked like he was here for years. We're seeing the chemistry with Tom Brady and Gronk. I mean, gentlemen, this is a team that could go to the Super Bowl. They're defensively sound. Yeah. I mean, there's no. So let's see. But again, and I can't stress this enough. He is the type of guy that could go to a team and completely dismantle the chemistry with his presence. So I think you mentioned the weird dynamic with him and Tom Brady. It is bizarre.
He's wearing a damn TB12 hat today. He looks like his oldest son.
I saw that. It's strange. But I think, look, we trust you, Tom. We trust your judgment. You're a savvy veteran. You're a Hall of Famer. You're a family man. Like, you talk to him. So I think Tom Brady has probably assumed the friendship role, but more of a babysitting role at this point.
I think I have just been replaced as Justin's target of interest by one Tom Brady. I guess you're going to have to compete with AB for that one. Chris Godwin seems like had a big cast on his hand today, had the procedure on his finger, seems very dicey to play. There will be more news and more updates if you want to follow along. Go to the footballdiehards.com website, look at the late breaking updates section, a constant flow of news and information there, as well as other articles and video and audio of interest that will keep you appraised of all the latest things you need to know about, including Kyle Dvorchak's rankings, the staff rankings, and other fun stuff that you must have. Now let's get into DFS stuff because that's why people are listening. They want to win the damn money. Justin, you were slightly helpful last week in winning the money. Here's your next shot. Quarterbacks.
All right. Well, I did not fool around last week. There was no playing games, and I went right to Patrick Mahomes. They were heavy favorites against the Jets, and I double stacked them with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and it really worked out. I think the Millionaire Maker had Marcus Robinson on that lineup, but it worked out, and I won a lot of money because of it. 8,100. I don't think that you need to go back to Mahomes, but he's about as safe as you can get. Tighter matchup here. They're probably still going to crush the Panthers. I'm going to have some exposure to Patrick Mahomes. I will have a lot of exposure to Russell Wilson, Josh Allen this week. I think for Josh Allen, we've seen highs. We've seen some lows. I think if he's going to get it done, it's going to be against Seattle. Probably going to take the discount on Josh Allen. Going to have exposure to Russell Wilson because he is your MVP tonight. To put him, I think, on any planet, is he going to be lights out? DK Metcalf is the real deal for certain. So it's going to be Mahomes, Wilson, Josh Allen. I'm not going to be mad at you for playing Matt Ryan. I love him. I love the spot at home against the Broncos and, of course, Justin Herbert. But one last name I'll mention is going to be Drew Lock. Primarily, I think this is a guy that is getting comfortable. We talk about this all the time. The more reps, the more hands-on experience he's getting. 21 DraftKings points last week against the Chargers, had some turnovers, but really turned it up in the fourth quarter. And we like to see that. So at 5,200, he is not going to be in a better spot in terms of matchup against an atrocious Atlanta Falcons secondary. So 5,200, probably going to stack him with Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, something like that. Do it on the cheap and then build around those cheap pieces.
Pretty impressive there, going out on a limb on DK Metcalf like that. Wow. Bold. Kyle, your quarterback situation, sir.
Yeah, so I like the game Justin talked about. I like Carolina at Kansas City. It's a fun game. There should be a lot of points. The only problem is when you play all of these Chiefs, it is difficult to build good lineups around them. And you still can, but the prices continue to come up on these guys. And I think my preferred way to attack them this week, and this won't be every week, last week was a great spot just to jam in your Chiefs. But this week, I like attacking this game with a Teddy Bridgewater stack. He's played quite well this year. He's like top 10 in yards per attempt. He's completing a ton of his passes because he's quite accurate, even if he doesn't go deep all that often. He doesn't have to because he's got two very talented athletic receivers, and he has only two receivers, is the thing I really like, and I think goes underlooked, is that if you get your Teddy Bridgewater call right, you are probably locking in the optimal stack. You are not going to be like, if you went Patrick Mahomes last week and say like didn't do the DeMarcus Robinson thing, you weren't winning the millie. He was just the guy you had to have. I mean, even like Ryan Tannehill has like three guys in tight end that could all be up there in a given week. I mean, don't know if we see Adam Humphries this week, but when you go with Teddy Bridgewater, you are locking in. If you just double stack him with if you go with Teddy Bridgewater and you double stack him with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, you have locked in nearly 80% of the air yards and over half the targets. I will do that every time I can in a game environment where they're underdogs, but there should be a lot of points scored, and the run back options are so easy. For me, it's you just play Travis Kelce or you play Tyreek Hill. Those are your run backs, and you call it a day. When I'm looking at paying up a little more because he is cheap, I think that gives me a unique roster build, but in lineups, I'm looking to pay up. I think Josh Allen is the quarterback I would look to target in Seattle Buffalo, and I think he's the only way I approach this game. I think I either go with a Josh Allen double stack, because the only way to get unique in this game, in my opinion, is going to be playing your John Browns and your Cole Beasleys. It's ugly, but if this game is going to hit 55 points, that's where the total is at as of Wednesday night. If it's going to get there, there's a very decent chance that a Cole Beasley, or it could end up being Tyler Kroft or Gabriel Davis, but given that we're going to see probably mostly Cole Beasley and John Brown, I'm going to have exclusively in games where I target, or in lineups where I target this game, Josh Allen double stacks with obviously Stephon Diggs and probably some Cole Beasley and John Brown. So I like going there as well. The last one, I just think Kyler Murray has as much upside as your Russell Wilsons, as your Patrick Mahomes, because he has that 100-yard rushing bonus or that like 300-yard passing bonus upside in his nature. Just the way he plays gets him to either of those on a lot of slates. He's expensive, but he's going to be probably the least high-owned of the expensive quarterbacks. I think he makes for a really contrarian play. Certainly not the an outright better play than Russell Wilson, but I'm just looking to get different, because if I think there's a decent chance he outscores Russell Wilson, which there is, and I think he comes in at lower owned, which I do believe that's the case, I'm probably going to have some of them. And again, the stacking option, it's super easy. You get to play DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, man, look at him go. Okay, what about running back?
So at running back, this is an interesting week. I come in on a lot of shows and say I don't think I'm playing very much Derrick Henry. He doesn't catch passes. He needs to break off a long run. I'm looking at the ownership projections I have. He's actually not going to be that incredibly popular. I have him under 12% right now. When I get Derrick Henry, and maybe it's the matchup, maybe people are afraid of Chicago. Their defense, I think PFF has them rated as like somewhere in like a 10 to 12 range. It's like 10, 11, or 12 as a run defense specifically. That's fine, but that's marginally above average. And when I'm looking at like the run defense, it's probably just a product of the game scripts and the opponents they've faced, not as much a measure of their talent. So when they're going to face Tennessee, like at home for Tennessee are right now, I think 5.5 point favorites, one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. I can get Derrick Henry. My exposure to Derrick Henry comes in at 11% ownership. That's when you play Derrick Henry. When people aren't going to be on Derrick Henry is when you buy into the extreme volatility, because that includes 150-yard, 2-touchdown games. Does it also, more so than a guy like Kamara, who's not on the slate, but it's the perfect example, does it include a lower floor? Absolutely, but I'm not, being the, 201st lineup out of 1,000 versus the 1,000th out of 1,000 makes zero difference to me. When I know Derrick Henry is going to be low owned and have that upside, that's when I play him. Looking at some other plays right now, I'm not sure how popular he gets. He should be very popular. I think James Conner, even if he's going to be upwards of 15, 16% ownership, man, 6,900 versus this terrible Dallas defense that should not be able to put up like any points on the board. Their implied team total per Vegas right now is at like 14. It's one of the lowest you'll ever find. It's Jets level, and it could even end up being worse. So I think James Conner, just the ultimate spot. You just play these guys against Dallas, essentially, especially when their quarterback is not going to sustain any drives. Their time of possession could be the worst we've ever seen. So James Conner at 6,900, I think is a very interesting play. The last one I have, I think, is the ideal leverage play. This is what we look for in tournaments, is where if Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, and Justin Herbert are all going to be chalk, which is the case, Justin Jackson at 4,900, 37 carries over his past 3 games. Also, I believe at least 5 targets in every single one of those games. He's maybe not the perfect workhorse, but given they play at a high pace and they run the football at a top 8 rate in the league, they play fast, they run the football a lot. That means even just getting a 60% market share for Justin Jackson of the backfield carries is going to be a lot of runs, and he offers me a lot of leverage. If he scores 2 touchdowns. Those are 2 touchdowns that the Herbert, Keenan Allen stacks, which appear to be very popular this week, that's 2 touchdowns they don't score. So I like being able to profit at my opponent's expense, at the expense of the bad guys. So I like Justin Jackson for that reason.
Yeah, we didn't even mention the COVID issues in Dallas, where Andy Dalton, in addition to concussion, is on the reserve COVID list. Ben DiNucci wasn't good. Won't be good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, knowing that in advance Cooper Rush and what's eating Gilbert Garrett Grape will be competing for quarterback, I guess. So, and on top of that, Ezekiel Elliott has a slight hamstring tweak. So there, get on with your bad self, Justin. Running backs.
Yeah, the biggest question I'm going to have at running back this week is how much Dalvin Cook is too much Dalvin Cook. He was thrusted into his role week 8, and he did Dalvin Cook things and then some. 32 touches, over 200 yards, just went absolutely bananas. And people were hesitant to use him as they ordinarily would coming off the injury. So the matchup is absolutely fantastic at home. It's the identity of that offense running the football. So you're not going to see the Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen games that we saw early on when Cook was hurt. So he is 8,200, but I think he's worth every penny. He's also going to come in extremely, highly owned, to say the least. So how much Cook am I going to have? Probably a ton. I would agree with Kyle as far as Derrick Henry. This middle range with between Connor, Chase Edmonds, and James Robinson, for me, it is James Robinson, and it's his backfield. He's going to have 20 carries. He's going to have 4 or 5 receptions. What he does with that is unknown. He could have 30 DraftKings points. He could have 14. And at 7K, it's something that you need to think about. So as far as Chase Edmonds, the organization loves him, being the Arizona Cardinals. He's pricey. I think he's going to get that Kenyon Drake role. I think when we think of Chase Edmonds, we think of receptions. Week 7, he had 7 receptions. So he's another guy that's probably going to go over 20 touches. Again, the Miami Dolphins defense, I know Kyle said he liked Kyler Murray. Best third down defense in the game right now. I'm treading lightly, to say the least, with Cardinals players, which is why I'm playing the early only slates Kyle and I were texting about earlier. As far as Antonio Gibson goes, I've been a Myles Gaskin guy for weeks. He is not playing, but I will go back to Gibson in a matchup that I think is going to be close. I think that hopefully that they're figuring out this is a guy that needs to get the football 20 times a game, at least, and be involved in the passing game. Week 7, he did not have any receptions, but prior to that, it's 3, 4, 5 receptions every week. 5,800. Not crazy about the price, like a couple bucks under 6K for Antonio Gibson. We don't know. He's not a bell cow, if you will. David Johnson is going to be highly owned. People are clinging on to that Arizona Cardinals, David Johnson, and we're just not going to see that anymore. It's a week where running backs it's kind of meh, to say the least. So as far as Justin Jackson's concerned, he is one name that has jumped out at me. Kyle, you nailed it. From sub 5K on that Chargers offense, he's the guy that has assumed that Austin Eckler role. I mentioned that last week. Like, give me some of that. Give me 20 touches. They're moving the football. I'm fine with that, so I can spend elsewhere. I would love to see DeAndre Swift have a more set role. Matt Patricia is a donkey amongst donkeys. He's another guy where I'd love to see him get the football 20 times a game. It's not happening. It's very sporadic, which is odd to say the least. J.K. Dobbins, love the player. We know why they drafted him. I think ultimately he is that Mark Ingram replacement. Hate the spot this week. But if you tell me that he's getting the ball 20 plus times, I'm probably going to sign up at sub 5K. So I'll have a little J.K. Dobbins. I don't think he's going to be highly owned, but the price is what jumps out at me. Last guy I'm going to mention is DJ Dallas. That is contingent upon the health of the great Chris Carson, who was tough as nails, did not play last week. DJ Dallas came in, 18 carries, 5 receptions. The involvement in the passing game, we love that. So 23 touches, 5K. You tell me he's getting me 20, 25 DraftKings points in a game, like Kyle mentioned, is going to score points. Sign me up. So that's my list. It is kind of meh at this point in time. I think you can throw some darts with the uncertainty in the Colts backfield tonight at Nyheim Hines. We just don't know what Nyheim Hines we're going to get. We want to get the consistent James White type of Nyheim Hines. because I think that's the role that he plays. They are dinged up. There's uncertainty there with our boy Jonathan Taylor. They're going to be tough to kind of bang against the Baltimore Ravens. So Nyheim Hines is one of these guys that can, Phillip Rivers can use him like he used Danny Woodhead and Austin Eckler and when they were the San Diego Chargers. So I'll probably have some Hines. It's just he can get you 25 and he can get you 5. So he's obviously a tournament dart.
All right. So I'm going to pivot to your wide receivers. I've noticed you used the word thrusted a couple times tonight. I wish you'd dial back on that. It's making me uncomfortable given your focus on me throughout the evening. Now, wide receivers, and I'm going to just say this. You've already boldly predicted a big game for DK Metcalf. Leave him off your list.
No, you know what? I'm not. I think it's one of these. It's a team where Russ tries to spread it out, but you're going to have a DK Metcalf week. Then you're going to have a Tyler Lockett week, and that's just the way it's going. So I'm not going to use DK Metcalf. I think he's going to see a lot of white being shadowed in Buffalo. But again, he is an absolute animal, Terrell Owens type guy where it doesn't matter the corner that's going to be chasing him around. He's going to do what he wants. So it's probably going to be a Tyler Lockett week. Up top, obviously, you have DeAndre Hopkins. Again, the Miami defense is tough. This is a tough unit. Make no mistake about it. DeAndre Hopkins is matchup proof. Although he has shown some, he's had some duds this season, week 4, week 6. So there's other mouths to feed in Arizona. Our boy Fitz is still in the equation. Christian Kirk has a little thing going on with Kyler Murray. So it's not the DeAndre Hopkins that you were getting in Houston where you knew Deshaun Watson was just going to lean on him every single week. Dollar for dollar, gentlemen, it's going to be Stephon Diggs. This is a team where, being the Seahawks, where they just let you do whatever they want. They're kind of like Atlanta. And we are due for a Stephon Diggs type of week. And what I mean by that is 25, 30 DraftKings points, 10, 15 targets, and he is just going to absolutely eat. And I'm going to use Tyler Lockett in the same lineup. So there's going to be a lot of Josh Allen, Diggs. Like Kyle said, Cole Beasley's another guy. Do you love to play Cole Beasley? Absolutely not. Do you love him when he's like 4,500? Absolutely. You're going to have to pay a little more, but I think there's a way to differentiate yourself. So I'm going to have Josh Allen, Diggs, Beasley lineups, and then I'll use Russ and sprinkle in Russ and some Bills wide receivers. So I'll mix up that stack. Keenan Allen, 7K guy, 6,200 last week, had him in just about every lineup. For me, I think that 7K is still too cheap. So I'm going to go right back to Keenan Allen. When he is on the field, and surprisingly, the last couple of years, he's been on the field for the most part. He gets targeted as much as anybody in football. We know that. Sign me up, 20, 25 DraftKings points, 7K. I'm right there. He's about as confident. Like, talk about Keenan Allen. My confidence level with him is as high as anybody in the leagues week to week. And at 7K, he probably deserves to be right around where Diggs is, 7,400, 7,500. So I'll be there as well. Julio Jones, one of the best wide receivers that I've ever seen pound for pound. Seems like he's back. You can play him in cash games. Probably not. Calvin Ridley's, I don't know if Ridley is going to play right now. I think you lock Jones in if he does not. I think you can swerve with Calvin Ridley and get a little deal on him. $200. So I'll have Ridley. I'll have some Julio Jones in my lineups. I'll let Kyle do some talking after I throw one more at you. And that guy, well, first of all, you're going to use some Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers. Now, do I want to spend $6,200 on Juju Smith-Schuster? I'm probably going to use Deontay Johnson. He's at 5K. Jerry Jeudy is the last name. The rapport is there with Drew Lock. You could make an argument Jerry Jeudy is the best wide receiver in this class, pound for pound. The touchdowns are coming. 10 targets last week, 4,700. Mentioned how I like Matt Ryan a little bit. Love Jones or Ridley. Jerry Jeudy is going to be in a ton of my lineups. The opportunity's there. I think the upside, the touchdowns are going to come, and he's cheap. So we like that. So it's Diggs, it's Julio Jones, it's Keenan Allen, it's Jerry Jeudy. And there's probably going to be some players in between, like Kyle mentioned, with the DJ Moores of the world, given the game script. DJ Moore is starting to become the DJ Moore that we often talk about. It's just not happening every single week. So I'll have some DJ Moore, and I'll probably have a little Brandon Cooks at 5,500 because Deshaun Watson does his thing every single week.
I was going to make sure there wasn't 7 more after the last.
No, I can just save a couple for Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I blacked out 25 minutes into his receiver talk. I heard, like, in my coma, I heard my name. He said, I'll get to talk here in a minute. And then,
Kyle,
like, 9 more receivers come down. I blacked out again.
It's so deep.
Kyle, thrust some wide receivers into our ear.
Yeah, I mean,
Jesus.
my receivers all correlate with the quarterbacks I'm playing for the most part. One quarterback I guess I didn't mention, I can bring him up here. 6,800 Will Fuller and Deshaun Watson as his quarterback, obviously, are in a great spot. Despite that, Will Fuller, I'm looking at under 10% ownership, doesn't project to be all that popular, which is kind of interesting. I guess it makes sense, at essentially the same price range, you can go Tyler Lockett, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Julio Jones. I get it. These guys are all great. But is there a 3 or 4 times chance that Keenan Allen outscores Will Fuller? No, it is not that many times greater, but that is seemingly what the ownership indicates. So whenever that happens to be the case, Will Fuller, who, I don't know, maybe has like 200-yard, 3-touchdown upside or whatever he posted last season. Maybe he has some upside in a spot for Jacksonville, where the team is the lowest yards per attempt allowed, or I guess the highest yards per attempt allowed, the worst yards per attempt allowed to opposing passers. Deshaun Watson, quite good on a streak of 300-yard games. I believe it's 4 in a row now. So Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, both very much in play. It is a very cheap stack given the prices of the receivers, whereas like you cannot in any feasible lineup like build a good lineup around a double stack with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Russell Wilson. That is so much money to dedicate to a stack. They need to score 60 points on their own to do that. You don't have the same thing with Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, and Brandon Cooks. They don't need to score that many points to pay off, and they still have a great implied team total. So I love that stack. The same thing with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, like I said, just like essentially double alpha receivers. Robbie Anderson, mega alpha receiver. DJ Moore, minor alpha receiver. You mop up so much volume by playing these guys. I have some interest in Deontay Johnson. I think people are going to be, as Justin said, man, the injuries haven't been great, but I think people are going to be hesitant on him. He's basically like Keenan Allen East, because whenever he is healthy, which has been difficult for him last week, he only missed a drive or two, I believe. He came back in. The fact that he didn't, I don't believe, got targeted once, or at least didn't catch any passes after coming back in, is hopefully it's just an indication that he came back in, wasn't perfectly healthy, and now he's healthy again. Can I choose to believe that when he's 5,000, not going to be mega popularly owned, and still averages double-digit targets whenever he is finishing or coming close to finishing the game? Or I guess, I don't know, last week throws a wrench in that statement, but in the 3 games before that, it was double-digit targets every single time. One other guy, Mike Williams, I think he's one of the only plays I don't have a ton of correlation with necessarily. He's only 5,100, but he's been taking the field for almost all of the snaps. He's getting a lot of targets, and he, I believe, leads the NFL in deep targets. Just another way to find negative correlation with Keenan Allen. So although he doesn't positively correlate with much else in my lineups, I do like the leverage he gives me off of Hunter Henry, off of Keenan Allen, and he's certainly a good play in his own right. He's not just leverage off of those guys. At 5,100, Mike Williams' deep ball potential is absolutely incredible. I guess the last one, if I'm going to be interested in some Derrick Henry, Allen Robinson, the quarterback play isn't great, but the market share numbers, as always, continue to be there for Allen Robinson. I like him as a little mini stack, just to bring him back with my Derrick Henry lineups.
We'll throw some tight ends, a lifeline of tight ends.
Yeah, it's going to be on like an old rotting rope that you pull it, and maybe when you pull the rope breaks, it frays apart and breaks, and you drown down the river. But I will attempt to throw you some lifelines. I don't think you have to get too potentially weird if as long as we see Matthew Stafford play. I think TJ Hawkinson, we saw him essentially operate as the number 1 receiver quietly for the team when Kenny Golladay went down. 10 targets, baby, 10 targets. And I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Marvin Jones at this point. Basically running, I believe he's running a route on every single Matthew Stafford route. Has like 2 games over, I believe, 8 targets, both with Kenny Golladay out. But Golladay was also out for another game, which he didn't do much. And he didn't even do a ton with his like 7 targets last week. He found the end zone twice, but the yardage total wasn't great. The touchdowns, if anything, seem more fluky. And when Marvin Hall, who I think is kind of good, he's a little sneaky speedster, but when Marvin Hall is going to see as many targets as you, I think Marvin Jones, his role in this offense potentially goes overstated, because unlike running back, wide receiver is not just this 1-for-1. Well, when Kenny Golladay leaves, Marvin Jones becomes Kenny Golladay. It's not the case. So I think potentially TJ Hawkinson continues to be more involved. Because I don't hate the Atlanta-Denver game, I think it's a game that I'm mostly running one-offs. I'm not sure if I'm stacking it, but I like a lot of Julio Jones. Noah Fant as the run back is ideal. Last week I ran back every single one of these stupid Denver players with my Keenan Allen lineups because I wanted to get different. And it ended up working out just like not horribly, at least, because they ended up putting up some points. I think it's possible they do that against Atlanta, and when I'm playing a receiver like Julio Jones, I do want him to be in a game environment where his team doesn't get to run Todd Gurley like 10 times in the fourth quarter. I want them to be in a modestly competitive game. I don't expect Denver to come in and win, but if they can put up points, and they should be able to against this terrible Atlanta defense, Noah Fant likely involved. And if I'm paying up for the most expensive tight ends, I think I'll still continue to take my Travis Kelce over Darren Waller pivot, simply because like they are playing almost the same role. I believe Darren Waller is number 1 in target share, number 2 in targets. Travis Kelce, maybe not the exact same perfect target share as Darren Waller, but his targets are so much better than Darren Waller that he gives you upside that none of these guys, no Mark Andrews, no, like maybe George Kittle, but obviously not playing George Kittle, not on the main slate anyways. George Kittle is really, when healthy, the only guy who gives you Travis Kelce upside. None of these guys giving Travis Kelce upside, so I think it's actually worth paying the $7,200 for him.
Man, pricey. Justin?
Yeah, I went to Kittle last week. Probably not going to go to him this week. I do not like 7,200, but he's as
Kittle?
good as it gets. I'm sorry, Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce. A lot of Travis Kelce last week. Priced up this week. Good reason. I don't know what is. Again, a lot of my decisions are based on ownership. Monitor that as the week goes. Spend 7,200. You got to get me 25, 26 points for me to be happy at least. So is that going to happen? It can, certainly can, but I think there's other options. It is the sea of mediocrity for a reason, and I'm usually content spending around 4 to 5K. Our boy Darren Waller is just he's not cutting the mustard for me. He's another guy I'm going to need 20 from. Does not do that often to pay off that just shy of 6K price tag. TJ Hawkinson jumped out at me, and he hardly does. But where Kenny Golladay is not playing, somebody has to absorb those targets and that usage, and I think it is TJ Hawkinson. And I think that decision will be based on whether Matthew Stafford plays or not. So 5,100, still pricey to me. He's like a Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst guy to me. 4,500, 4K. That I'm cool. Dollar for dollar, it is going to be Noah Fant for me. Going to have a lot of exposure to Julio Jones, like Kyle mentioned, and Jerry Jeudy and Drew Lock on the cheap. And I'm going to use Noah Fant. The targets are still there for Noah Fant. Completely fine going there at 4,600. I think we're starting to see Evan Ingram kind of come into his own. The touchdowns are not there, but 9 targets last week. 12 fantasy points. Really want more than that. 14, 15 points. I think that the touchdowns will come. They usually do. So splitting hairs with Ingram and Fant, but where I'm going to have a lot of Atlanta Falcons, my run back is going to be Noah Fant. Seeing a mediocrity is it's deep. It's not as deep as it usually is, so my list is short. I'm really getting tired of Hunter Henry. It's discouraging, and he's like highly owned every single week. It's 4K. He's a tough guy to get off of because the week you get off of him, he's going to have 2 touchdowns. So, but at 4K, he's going to be tough to not play. Hayden Hurst is another guy. I remember when he was drafted, Bob, we had some giggles and laughs in regards to Hayden Hurst. He was about 24 when he came out and didn't work out in Baltimore. I think that Hayden Hurst is in that Austin Hooper role. Not having the year that Hooper did last year, but it's just fine. And if I spend 4,100, I want 15 points. I think he's a guy that can get me there. 7 targets in back-to-back weeks, not breaking the bank. So if he busts like Jonnu Smith has for me often, I'm not going to be that disappointed. Again, Smith's another guy. He does have 5 touchdowns. We know what they do in Tennessee. Derrick Henry's going to eat till he throws up. But I think we're chasing those 20, 21 point Jonnu Smith games. He resembles your boy, Delaney Walker. Right, he slid in, and it's taken a couple of years, but I think he's a bona fide tight end in the league. So more decisions are going to be made tonight, dollar for dollar. It is TJ Hawkinson, again, because Kenny Golladay is not playing. It is Noah Fant. It is Evan Ingram, and it is Hayden Hurst.
Not Hayden. TJ Hawkinson dealing with a toe injury to start the week, a little bit limited, but nobody seems concerned about his availability. Justin, dive right into the defensive team that you will be playing this very week.
I'm going to stick to my guns, and I tell you guys this every week. Like, I don't screw around when it comes to defenses. Yeah, we want to save money, but the reality is there's a lot of defenses. When you look at what these defensive Ds have done, there's not a lot of upside. You see some sacks, but there's a lot of defenses that just don't get it done. So I'll spend extra. And I think this week you do have numerous options. And I think that the Cardinals, if I'm going to get cheap or cheaper, it's probably going to be the Cardinals. Obviously, there's some concerns with Kyler Murray and using the Dolphins in Arizona, but I wouldn't be mad at you. I think they're on a heater, and I think they can. It's a really good unit. Let's put it that way. And you saw what they did to Jared Goff week 8. Use the Cardinals. I think they're also a good unit. Pick on to a little bit, sub 3K. I'm fine at home. When you look at what they've done, no touchdowns, just a couple of 6 picks, some sacks. It's good enough. But I mean, I really want upside, and I'm not going to pay for this Pittsburgh Steelers at 5K unless you were guarantee me that they're going to get 2019 Patriots stats for the first few weeks. And it's just asinine. So dollar for dollar tonight, and we do record on Wednesdays. A lot of things change after we get off the line. Probably going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. Love it. Teddy Bridgewater is not, I know Kyle likes him, but you watch him move around. He's not that quick. I can see some sacks. He's going to be playing catch up. There's going to be some picks. I mean, this is a defense. Think of the Chiefs. You think of their offense. Make no mistake. This is a defense that can get at the quarterback, intercept the ball. 3,700. They were 4,500 last week against the Jets. And for good reason, I did not go there. And I wouldn't be mad at you if you played the Colts.
Yeah, you get mad. You don't get mad a lot. I appreciate that. Your anger worries me and it concerns me, especially with all the thrusting units you're speaking about. Kyle, your defense of choice.
Yeah, if I can find the money, which isn't always the case, but we'll see, I think one of the best points per dollar plays is Washington versus the Giants. I mean, Washington, one of the best, most stacked front sevens you'll find against one of the least aware quarterbacks of his surroundings in Daniel Jones. Also turns the ball over a lot and not a very accurate passer. All of these are hallmarks of quarterbacks you want to face defenses up against. 3,400 is a bit steep on DraftKings, but if I have the money, I think they're simply one of the best plays. If I don't have the money, well, if you look to the other side of the ball, there's another guy who loves taking sacks, doesn't have a ton of pocket awareness, Kyle Allen. Believe 2 sacks in every single game so far, also multiple turnovers in one of his games, and 2,700. The Giants aren't a talent-laden defense, but neither is Kyle Allen. So for that reason, I think both sides of this game, it's the lowest total game of the week as of right now. Both sides of the defenses in this game are certainly worth targeting. Another cheap play that a defense maybe not stacked with talent, but I much more prefer to just target good matchups is Arizona favored over Miami. I love Tua, but he didn't look great, and it seems like he's a guy who they'd be comfortable limiting. I think that gives you a very solid floor at 2,900, and simply put, just a second week quarterback who didn't look good in his first week. I'm fine with doubling down on that bet and going right back to the well and facing him against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think I buy into that. All right, fellas, I think that was a fantastic selection. Once again, if you're looking for more news and notes, you're playing season long. We have our season long rankings for the week 9. Also coming soon, rest of season rankings. I've had a preview of them. Look really great. They also give you what the upcoming schedule is for each of the players. It's by position. You're really going to enjoy that. So hit the footballdiehards.com website. Catch up on all the latest news. Look for Justin's Digging in the Crates column. Get some cheap DFS plays there later this week. I'll have my DFS 3 and out. Kyle's cash game and GPP lineup breakdowns are already available. He's on top of things, man. Always ahead of the game. Even when the games aren't here yet, and we don't even know if they're playing all of them, Kyle is ahead of them. And check out his video with Jason Brady on Wednesday night as well to set the DFS landscape for you. Tons of great stuff. Don't miss out. Let's go get some work done, kids.
Let us go get some work done. For myself at Kyle Tweets here, for Justin at Justin Lonero, and for Bob at Football Die Hard, I will catch you guys, and we will all catch you guys next week.